matter of preventing it.
What will you do to stop it?
Councillor Kokoya has to give us our voters' roll. And I'm sure he cannot do that.
ECOWAS team is here already, aiding the National Elections Commission.
Yes, yes. Yes. It has not been done yet. It has not been done yet.
In the middle, what's the confidence the Korea steps down, all things will be put in place?
You know the story about a snake?
Unless you tell us.
You know the story about a snake?
Unless you tell us.
We got a snake, we got to cut out the head. When we cut out the head, the Elections Commission will straighten up.
And who is that snake?
Mr. Kokoya.
As women, we fear that the presence of Kokoya is going to tint whatever we do. It does not bring us comfort. And so we're asking that Kokoya be removed.
We do not trust Councillor Jerome Kokoya. Maybe he thinks the National Election Commission is his private property. We will be here until he resigns. We want a free, fair, and credible election. And that's all. We are appealing to the President of the Republic of Liberia to relieve Councillor Jerome Kokoya of this post. We don't want no confusion.
These people were found after a protracted investigation to be in violation of the party's constitution, particularly Article 7, Section 1E, which
fear is forward. No one is afraid of yesterday. Let us not seek to satisfy our taste for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience. We have been told it's where he stands at times of challenges and controversies. People should not be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of the people. In a room where we unanimously maintain a conspiracy of silence, one word of truth sounds like a pistol shout. You know what I tell you? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to overcome. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers his fear. The real strength of democracy is that anyone who is not specifically against it must be ultimately for it. An informed people is one of the best guarantees of a continuing democracy. That's why we need an informed citizenry. I greet you this morning in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom. You are under the sound of my voice, not as a prophet, but as a humble servant. It is in your hands to make Liberia great. Good morning, folks. Good morning, Liberia. Good morning, Liberians. Good morning across the 15 political subdivisions of Liberia. It is in your hands to make Liberia great. For those who do not refrain from enriching themselves at the expense of the people, the law will take a course. This is a promise that President George Weah made some 5-6 years ago when he took over the mantle of authority. He said, in a quote, "For those who do not refrain from enriching themselves at the expense of the people, the law will take a course. As officials of government, it is time to put the interests of our people above our own service interest. It is time to be honest with our people." Where have we gone with this promise? Has President George Weah delivered on this promise he made sometimes in 2018 when he provided that bring people his agenda as a president? The whole village will perish from hunger if we give the cutlass to an old man to make a farm simply because he has experience, even though his experiences have never solved any problem whenever he is allowed to make the change. Alexander Cummings told Joseph Boakai. The debate is getting heated. Don't give the cutlass to an old man simply because he has experience. Alexander Cummings said the experience is meaningless. Because too often times, when the old man is given a chance to make a change, nothing we see. 40 years plus in public services, nothing to show. So don't give the cutlass to the old man, because he will starve to death. President George Weah made a nomination in government affecting the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications. And this is exactly what we're going to focus our discussion on this morning, fellow Liberians. President George Weah has appointed a new Post and Telecommunication Minister, replacing Councillor Cooper Crow. That Minister Cooper Crow at the time. We're going to place an emphasis on that while we make up the president's decision and whether or not who the president has appointed to that position actually deserves that post in terms of qualifications, in terms of his experiences. I want to look at that this morning in the program. Up until 9 o'clock, I have designed a debate for you on this radio. We're going to have folks, a stalwart of the Unity Party, Alfonso Bele will join us, and as well the opposition united for President George Weah. We want to compare and contrast between the two in terms of why should President George Weah be re-elected, or why should President George Weah be rejected. We're going to have that debate on this radio this morning at 9 o'clock. I'm setting. Alfonso Bele comes from the Unity Party, and the opposition united for President George Weah, and a auxiliary of the CDC as well, will serve us breakfast this morning at 9 o'clock. A debate that you don't want to miss. And so we encourage you to follow up. But coming up shortly, we have a conversation surrounding the president's appointment. On yesterday, he dismissed Councillor Cooper Crow. no say cancel, Mr. Kupwa crowd at the time, and replace him with a son of Nima. I'm going to look at the president's decision and the nominee, whether he is best suited for the job, whether he has or what it takes, to improve our post and telecommunications sector in this country. I encourage you to invite someone to listen. I definitely encourage you to invite someone to listen. This is Good Morning Liberia. My name is Harris Williams, saying good morning and welcome. Welcome to the program this morning. Definitely, we're our freedom fighters. Well, who are those that stood in defense of our country? That said, in all what we do, in all fairness, we must protect the peace of this country. We must do everything possible so as to ensure that Liberia deserves better. And so, good morning, those of you watching. Yes, indeed, we say thanks so very kindly for following us. Help us share the live video. For those of you following us via radio as well, we encourage you to invite someone to play a listening role. And thanks for joining us. You follow us as well via our online radio at www.thevoiceofliberiaonline.com and via our Facebook page, Voice of Liberia. And invite someone to listen as well. Too many issues in Liberia. But on yesterday, the Alternative National Congress and collaborating political parties in general, I had a press conference, a conference that was, its timing was very perfect, especially that everyone who have thought that the Alternative National Congress who have addressed, some of the major concerns in Liberia, ranging from the ambassador's statement, the U.S. ambassador's statement, joining to some other issues in government, and you want to end to the decision from the Unity Party, to choose Jeremiah Cone, Senator Jeremiah Cone, over those who stood in defense of the Unity Party at the time they needed those individuals the most. And so, but on yesterday, it was a bit contradicting from what many Liberians suspect that the Alternative National Congress will have said. At its current state, right? And this is one of the things I want to say in passing. At this current state of our politics, the opposition have to demonstrate some sense of responsiveness. They have to demonstrate some sense and some level of respectability for one another. Oh yes. At this time, listen, the opposition community in totality, I'm convinced and I'm confident that their primary objective is to unseat President George Weah in the October elections. If that is to be done, if that will be achieved, then I think by this time you should desist from, attacking one another. You should desist from, throwing jabs at one another. It won't help you. Listen, the more you have divisions within the opposition, the more you have disagreements within the opposition, that's the more edge you give the government. You give the government more message. You empower the government message, right? That you guys are not serious. You guys have nothing to offer for the Liberian people. And so on yesterday, the statement from comments against Ambassador Bwaka, it didn't go well with the Unity Party, the MDRO, and some other institutions that are supporting the Unity Party. And the UPC does are in front to the character of Ambassador Bwaka, to the personality of Ambassador Bwaka, and the entire Unity Party. But I'm convinced that Kumi will even go further to do more in the coming days, especially that the Unity Party, what she demonstrated of recent, sometimes of last week, sets the pace for discussion that this party indeed need to think otherwise. So Cummins went on to say that the whole village, which is Liberia, the village in question is Liberia, will perish from hunger if we give the cutlass, which is the authority. The cutlass here is being used as authority. The village here portrays Liberia. We want to break down this statement of Cummins before we move to our discussion. Yeah, but we want to do this in passing. So the village here is Liberia. The cutlass here is the authority, is the presidency, is your decision on October 10th that you will make. So he went on to say, the whole village will perish from hunger if we gave the cutlass to the old man. Who is the old man in this process? It's Joe Walker. Who is the old man in this thing? Is Joe Walker. Who is the old man in this thing? Is Joe Walker. So if we get the village, we take Liberia and places in the hands of Walker, and gave him the cutlass, the mantle of authority, the presidency, the whole village will perish from hunger. Simply because he has experience, even though his experiences have never solved any problem whenever he is allowed to make the change. Whenever he is allowed to make the change. Remember, this is a Joe Walker that governed the Senate for 12 consecutive years, of which all of the by-concession agreements you want to talk about that was recorded in the House was presided over by Joe Walker. All of the decisions that were taken by the Liberian Senate some 12 years ago was Joe Walker. So Cummins is saying at the time he has the chance to make the change, he failed to deliver on the expectations of the Liberian people. So this is a reflection of what others have been saying about Joe Walker. This demonstrates as well as to why the likes of even those that within the cycle of Joe Walker has said about him. Remember, Henry Costa had made a similar statement against Joe Walker. And even went on to say, those of you, I'm quoting his words, that even those of you that wanting to vote for Joe Walker, you are bad players. And in a setting of Liberia, when you use such a terminology, it means you don't know what you want to support. It means you don't even know what you want, because in essence, this man was given authority for 12 good years. One who, at the time of the Liberian, when he presided over the Liberian Senate. So Cummins is warning you Liberians, is reminding you Liberians that this is a time we must make the hardest of decision. That the old man experience is not everything. Experience becomes wasteful when you have the experience, but I know you don't make use of it. You have the experience. Experience is the best teacher, but I have come to realize that in Liberia that is far from reality. Because if he had the experience, the first thing you want to understand that people who suffered with you, right? People who stood by you, people who defended you at the time you needed them the most, even to a point that the new trend of development in your life might not reconcile with what they want. There will always be room where you have them considered. That's what experienced people will do. That's what an experienced man does. So the further of that's what Cummins is reminding you. Oh yes, Cummins is reminding you Liberians that it is time we take the quarters from the old man's hand, because giving the old man the quarter will just be, another time where Liberia will perish. But listen, if you want to counter what Cummins have said about Joe Walker, right? I also encourage you to listen to this. This is what others, even those that we felt are the stone supporter of Joe Walker, have said. This is what they have said, and this is what they have told you about Joe Walker. The same very Joe Walker you want to defend. Listen to this. And it's important we bring this before we move forward in our conversation. Like I told you at 8 o'clock, we initiate a conversation on the president's decision, to dismiss Councillor Cooper Crow and replace him with a son of Nimba. We're going to have a conversation on that. But listen to this. This is what others have been saying about Joe Barker.
And yet, the senators that should be advocating for the Liberian people's interests, where are they? They're all Joe Barker. Dumping. None of them are with Joe Barker. And they're saying, we want the continuation of this. The president has given up all of our resources. 66 back concession agreements. Joe Barker, as head of the Senate, the man who approves the agenda of the Senate. Now, folks, something you all need to know that you don't know. You know who's the head of the Liberian Senate? Joseph Human Barker. You know who approves the agenda for discussion, the things that the Senate does? Joseph Barker. He approves the Senate's agenda. Everything, all the bad concessions, all the bad government deals that they can do, that can go to the Senate for ratification. Who presides? Joe Barker. Who approves the agenda? Joe Barker. He does everything. When I hear some of you say he's an honest old man, he is just as wicked and good for nothing as anything. And yet some of you backplay and say you won't vote for him. Liberia.
Okay, so you got it right there, right? You listen to what exactly supporters of Joe Barker have said about him. Even those that within the cycle of Joe Barker have said about him. So there's also validates what Kumi is saying, that if he gave the cutlass to the old man simply because he has experience, the village will perish. Liberia will go down its drain. Liberia will go down its drain. So Kumi in essence is telling you that, in other words, either you considered, re-electing President George Weah, or perhaps Martini, but you cannot vote Joe Barker. And Kumi understands that there is no space for him in Liberia politics in terms of whether he's going to be elected or not. No one is waiting to elect Cummings in Liberia. For that is clear. Evidenced by the current trend of politics, you have a conversation with Liberians today on who you think will be elected. Cummings nowhere around. Yeah, so let's just disregard communal argument. So if he is presenting such an argument to the Liberian people that we should not go because of experience, simply because the old man has still in the village, so there is a reason why we gave him the cutlass to farm. There I think the only option there he's considering is President George Weah. But listen to this. It's important I bring this to you. Listen to this as well. Oh my word, where is this thing?
Good boy.
I want to get this. Okay.
Mr. Weah is a boy. Then I think he's a good boy. Because Joseph Barker, former Vice President Barker, dropped. He is how he collapsed, almost died. It is that boy, because George Weah, who really then pick him up, took the plane to fly in abroad for open heart surgery that made him to live today with pacemaker battery. He's the battery doctor right now.
This is Prince Johnson, right? This is Prince Johnson, and I want to listen to this. Listen to the West.
So the battery is controlled by the white man who gave him a medical center where he was thrown to. So maybe he's not well to speak the way he's speaking. He's using battery. It's not normal. A man who is using battery and a man who has a natural hand. Compare the two. So Joseph Barker, the former Vice President, I respect him. I'm sorry for the statement he made. He's using battery. He's a battery total. Such a man cannot even be president of this country. He's sick. So the frustration made him to speak the way he did. Calling the president boy. How many million people voted that boy? So many millions. Look at this boy and elected him. Maybe you call Joseph George Weah boy because of the age. Because Joseph Barker is over 70. And this boy is about 50 something. So when you say boy, well, that's it. But boy, in the sense of immaturity, no. George Weah is mature. He's mature. That's why he told Joseph Barker on the ground where he collapsed to fly here abroad for medical checkup, for medical heart surgery. That's what made him to live today. I think Joseph Barker, in conclusion, should be very grateful to that boy who flew in on the country for open heart surgery and make it to live today. But the way Joseph Boyka speaks, the way he acts, he is one of the 9 ungrateful lepers. The 9 ungrateful lepers.
This is Prince Johnson. Listen to Prince Johnson very well. We're going to tell you something about this.
The first thing before you can return, everyone good deserve another good. So if Mr. We are sending you to America or whatever country and you were operator on and you got well, if he did not want to do what he did for you, if he was immature and a boy, as you say, he would have left you there to die. When you die, will you reciprocate good for good? No. I don't think you have reciprocated. When you reciprocate good for good, then stick to that. Don't be uttering derogatory or profane languages or statements against this president. That's wrong. You are the elder man in the country, old man like you. You got heart trouble. You felt that you collapsed. Somebody help you today. You're speaking. You should be thankful. In everything, give thanks. That is a bigger picture of men who saved their life through God's power. John Ware was the vessel God knew to save Joseph Boyka. Today, because of power greed, he who said that they squander all the opportunities, destroy this country, who became the dominant vampire, corruption, that they say was vampire, he now want to be president.
You listen to this. Let's pause it right there. You listen to Prince Johnson, right? Prince Johnson have stayed within the Liberian Senate for a very handsome number of time. So he understands how things work in the Liberian Senate. He understands how things, go about the different ways it is. He's confirming what Cummings has said about Joe Boyka. He confirmed what Heron Costa have said about Joe Boyka. We'll play all of those audios. So what are we saying is that, and this is one of the parts I get discouraged. Listen, politics in Liberia is just as stupid as one would think. It's stupid in the sense that people you thought to have integrity, people you ought to understand that they stand for the right thing, are the ones that will turn around with somersault because they want to just ascend to the presidency. So they do everything, they compromise what they stand for, even if at the time they meant what they said. So now listen, this is it. This is a man that has said the worst thing about Joe Boyka. There's a man that has exposed all of what you shouldn't have known about Joe Boyka. He said to you that Joe Boyka is using battery. We didn't say it. Prince Johnson said it. Prince Johnson said at the time Joe Boyka fell off at the home of President George Weah. It was President George Weah that made way for him to leave this country. There are records, there are evidence that prove to that even the time Joe Boyka was fleeing out of Liberia, the presidential aide Carrasco admitted to that President George Weah made some personal interventions that resulted to that. Prince Johnson confirmed that the old man is using battery. Prince Johnson confirmed that the old man lacks, current, as he said, his current state will not permit him. He said all of the worst thing about him. On the contrary, just a few months ago, he went back and declared intention for the old man. Then listen, look at this, right? This is a man that the American people are not willing to do business with. There's a man that the American people are not willing to see in the, engaging in the decision-making process of our country. He went on after supporting the president and flip-flop and went to the Unity Party. This is a man that the Unity Party is holding left and right. This is the man that the Unity Party is holding back and forth. The Unity Party are first that Liberians will speak up and want to talk about integrity. The Unity Party at first, the Liberian will speak up and said on numerous occasions, Ambassador Boyka has said he will work with only those that have clean hands. He will work with those that don't mean no harm for Liberia. Those individuals that have stood and fight and maintain the integrity of Liberia. These are promises that Joe Boyka have made to you in past times. But on the contrary, because he wants to ascend to the presidency, I want to believe that perhaps it might not be his decision, but the decision of those that surround and say, hey, old man, this is your last chance. In all what to do, you need to go in that mansion. Because when you enter the mansion, it's to you, we will close your eyes. While you are sleeping, we will enter, and steal from the Liberian people. This is our time to steal. But we can only steal if we have the chance to use you and enter in the executive, enter the executive mansion. So there are reasons why you need to go there. These are things that they say to him. These are things that make him to believe. Now, perhaps one of the ways to get there easily is by Prince Johnson in the likes of others coming in, you understand, coming in and present a picture that they are the right ones to lead Liberia. Coming in to present a picture that they have all what it takes in terms of the decision they want to make for Liberia. But like we have said, this village will not perish. Like we have said, this village will not perish. It is either that we have a consideration on our decisions, but we cannot, definitely, we cannot make any choice that will hinder the growth and development in this country. Oh yes, you want to consider the current state of flow of things in this country. This country, as we speak, coupled with the hard times in this country, that of which we must admit, coupled with other issues in this country, we need a leader that is vigilant. We need a leader that is robust. We need a leader, that is effective. We don't need a leader that will sit and fold their hands, and just sit and wait for what people tell them to do before they do it. We need a leader that's able to put his feet on the ground and work it. We need a leader that will institute measures in this country. Can Joe Barker deliver that? After 12 years, right? But we're going to hold our conversation right there. Like I told you, that was just in passing. We felt that a statement made by Cumming is very important that you Liberians consider that we will not give the village, we will not give this village, we will not give the village to any to the old man just because because we say, listen, leadership is not about sympathy, and this is one of the things that is hurting Africa. This is one of the things that's affecting Africa. In other developed world, you want to consider people will be voted on what they are able to deliver to the people. You look at Joe Barker after 12 years. And this is a start I will encourage. And believe you me, from now on moving forward in the coming days, I'll have to put my knees down and pray independently for Liberia. And my prayer will be that Liberia should join